guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia and this is the Alicia Dion channel, where we talk about everything IBS, IBD, bloating and gut health. Whilst you're here, why not hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and also say hi in the comment section below. Today we're going to be talking about the most common reasons for bloating and how to avoid bloating flare-ups by knowing these top tips. The most common causes for bloating are very varied and they cause many different types of bloating flare-ups. Throughout this video I'm going to tell you the most common reasons for bloating, and then as we go through them I'm going to explain specifically to that reason how to avoid bloating flare-ups by giving you top tips to reduce the chances of it happening to you. The first most common reason for bloating that we're going to talk about today is aerophagia. And aerophagia is basically just a fancy word that means drinking in way too much air. Aerophagia is when you swallow an excessive amount of air, which then travels to the stomach as gas and causes bloating and irritation. We all do this. We all ingest a certain amount of air throughout the day, and then this comes out as either belching or flatulence. We always talk about the really great topics here on this channel. However, people with aerophagia ingest much more gas than the regular person, and swallowing this much air can cause abdominal distension, which is basically a fancy word for swelling of the abdomen. It can also cause flatulence, bloating and belching. You can have it in two different ways. One is long-term, otherwise known as chronic, and the other is acute, also known as short-term. So what are the ways that aerophagia can take place? What is it that you're doing that's making aerophagia happen? The first is eating too quickly. This can take place quite simply, and literally all you have to do for this to happen is to take your second mouthful of food before you have finished chewing and swallowing your first mouthful of food, because in trying to get that second mouthful of food into your mouth you're ingesting more air. The second thing is talking whilst eating. Now this can happen because obviously you're ingesting air whilst you're speaking, and I think, to be honest, we're all quite guilty of this. If you're at a table with your friends or family and you want to be part of the conversation, sometimes you just have to get your point in there before you have finished your food completely, and basically this can lead to ingesting air, which can lead to bloating, belching, flatulence, etc. The third thing that it could be is chewing gum. Chewing gum has been shown to be really bad for this condition, and people who already have it pre-standing are told not to chew gum because it will just make the situation a million times worse. Obviously when you're chewing gum you're never actually swallowing food, and a lot of people chew with their mouth open when they're chewing gum, and that means that they're taking in a lot of air, swallowing it, and it's going into their stomach. Fourth up, we have mouth breathing. Now I'm sure you have come across someone in your life that mouth breathes, and I have to say I'm not a massive fan of it. I think it's actually a little bit gross. But some people don't have much of a choice and that's just the way it is. But when I read this, what came to my mind is when I fall asleep and sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'm mouth breathing because my mouth is open. And that means that you're ingesting quite a lot of air and the same thing's gonna happen. So try and be mindful of that and also maybe adjust your sleeping position. The fifth thing is drinking fizzy drinks. This one's really obvious. There's bubbles in fizzy drinks. Bubbles are air. You drink the air, it goes to your stomach. Aerophagia. The sixth one is loose dentures. I'm not sure how many people watching this will apply to, but it's a good thing to keep in mind when one day it becomes us. Maneuvering loose dentures in your mouth can cause you to take more air into your stomach, again leading to aerophagia. The seventh thing is over-exercising. I'm normally on my channel telling you guys to exercise, so you'll be happy to know that there is such a thing as over-exercising. When this happens, you're gasping for air so rapidly and so fully with your whole body that you end up taking air into your stomach, and sometimes in quite large gulps. So you really should be careful and make sure that you're not pushing yourself too hard when it comes to your cardiovascular ability, and also make sure that you're trying to increase your VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen that's going around your body, before you push yourself too hard with things like long distance running. Reason number 8 is smoking, and reason number 9 is drinking through a straw. If you think about it, when you're drinking through a straw, every time you take a sip you have to suck up the entirety of the air that's already in it. That means it's going straight in, and then you're swallowing whatever liquid is in your mouth. So of course the air from the straw is going to continue to your stomach as well, which in turn will increase aerophagia. The 10th reason for aerophagia, and my favourite and personally I think most interesting, is anxiety. When people who suffer with aerophagia were studied, they looked into what other conditions went side by side with it. Surprisingly, they found that only 6% of people with aerophagia suffered from indigestion. However, they found that 19% of people with aerophagia suffered from anxiety. A second study was carried out where they observed people who had excessive belching. They observed the participants without their knowledge and looked at their belching habits. And then they observed them again, except they knew about it this time, and observed their belching habits for a second time. They found that when they didn't know that they were being observed, the amount they belched was extremely reduced. And this could be because when they were being observed, they had increased anxiety. So it's now been theorized that aerophagia could be a learned behavior. And this basically means that the people with anxiety are using aerophagia and burping as a coping mechanism for their anxiety. So these are my top tips tips on how to reduce aerophagia and reduce bloating flare-ups. Number 1, eating with your mouth closed. This is just good manners and you should be doing this anyway. However, if you're not, it's a great way to reduce aerophagia. The second thing you can do is to practice slow breathing. Not only will this reduce anxiety, but it'll also put you more in tune of where the air is going in your body. Obviously, we want air and oxygen to be going into your lungs and CO2 to be coming out of your lungs. What we don't want is for any air to be going to your stomach. Third thing you can do is to actively deal with stress and anxiety. This one's a big one, especially if that study is correct and aerophagia is a learnt behaviour. It could be almost a nervous tic or an anxious coping mechanism. So if you can help deal with your stress and anxiety, you might find that your aerophagia decreases and therefore your bloating decreases. The next one is to reduce mouth breathing, avoid chewing gum, avoid fizzy drinks, and take small bites of food and make sure that you're chewing them to completion before you swallow them and before you take a second bite. And this will all help you to avoid bloating flare-ups. The next most common reason for bloating is eating too fast. This one slightly steps on the toes of our previous reason, aerophagia, but only slightly. Not only does eating too quickly deserve its place on the common reasons for bloating chart, but it earns it threefold. First off, aerophagia. So eating too quickly makes you gulp air. You're inhaling your food. It also means that you're not chewing your food properly. And what happens when you don't chew your food properly is larger chunks of food are making it to your stomach, and your stomach's like, whoa, hold up in a second. You're supposed to chew this way better before the food ever reaches me. And then it has to work so much harder and beyond the realms of its actual job in order to break down the food sufficiently. It also means that larger chunks of food, if your stomach isn't able to deal with it, can sit in your intestines and irritate it. And that's going to mean fermentation of foods and more bloating. Another reason eating too fast makes it onto my most common reasons for bloating list is because it can lead to overeating. It takes approximately 20 minutes from the time you start eating for your brain to acknowledge that it's full. So if you're eating really fast, you're going to be taking in so much bloody food before your brain even has a chance to tell you that it's full. And by the time it finally sends that signal to you, you're going to have eaten so much more than you're supposed to, which ironically overlays with reason number 3 for most common reasons for bloating, which is overeating. Overeating is stated by WebMD as probably the most common cause of bloating. Unfortunately, overeating makes your stomach deal with more food than it ever wanted, needed, or can cope with, and this causes it to expand and push on all of your other organs, which is going to feel really uncomfortable. This can make you feel really bloated, sluggish, compressed, lethargic. Not only this, but when your stomach is forced to expand, your body may be under stress, which leads to stress hormones. And when stress hormones are released, it can lead to something called fight or flight. Now, the fight and flight response is something I have talked about many times before, and I actually have 2 or 3 videos which specifically orientate around this topic. And when you're in fight or flight, your digestion basically shuts down, which is going to lead to more discomfort, more indigestion, more bloating, and all of that crap. So try to eat slower the next time you have a meal and give your body a chance to give you that fullness signal. I don't really like saying this, but it's almost a mindful way to eat. It's making sure your body can keep up with you. And if you finish your meal and you don't feel like you're full, maybe make sure the next time you eat you have a look at the clock before you start. Then have a look at the clock when you finish. And if you're still not full, why not give it 20 minutes before you go and search for more food? This should help avoid bloating flare-ups and really reduce the amount of time that you're bloated. Most common reason for bloating, number 4, constipation. I talk about this topic all the damn time. There are some really simple things you can do to help constipation. Let me just quickly give you an overview again as to why constipation can cause bloating. So just as food sat in your intestines can cause bloating, stool sat in your intestines can cause bloating. If stool is traveling through your intestines too slowly, it means that too much water is being absorbed. It's being sucked out of the stool and it's making it really hard and firm, a bit like concrete, meaning it's really hard for you to pass. Now, there are water receptors in the colon which will allow you to pass stool more easily if you stay hydrated, because it means that there's more water available and hopefully it will mean a much softer stool. Also, water can help with gut motility. Being hydrated allows your metabolism to run properly. Water is the key to a lot of things that are wrong with people nowadays. But another thing that it could be is a reduction in serotonin, and serotonin is linked with people who have diarrhea. And low serotonin is linked with people who have constipation. So the thing that you can definitely do to help is exercise. When you exercise, as you know, you release serotonin. And serotonin will help you pass stool more easily. Stay hydrated dehydrated. And also, if you hate exercise, it's been advised that you do a 30 to 40 minute brisk walk 4 times a week. And this has been shown to really improve gut motility and bowel motility. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you move, your gut moves. Next up on our chart of most common reasons for bloating, we have food intolerances. If you have a food intolerance that you're unaware of, it could be a major reason that you're finding that you're bloated all the time. And the best way that you can find out if you have a food intolerance is to keep a food and symptom diary. This means writing down everything that you've eaten that day and every bloating or indigestion symptom that's taken place. But the most important thing is that you need to write down the times. That way you can see which foods are causing which symptoms. And this can sometimes lead you to a food intolerance that you didn't know you had. The most common ones are gluten and dairy, so that might be a really good place to start. And another helpful tip on this particular topic, that apparently most symptoms that occur because of a food intolerance happen 30 minutes after eating them. If you're really struggling but you still think that this topic applies to you, then maybe go see a specialist. I know that sometimes it can be quite a lot of money, but it's definitely worth investing in yourself to make sure that you have less symptoms, less bloating, and a better quality of life. Food intolerances can be quite nasty. They can make your bowel not empty properly, causing inflammation, discomfort, diarrhea, constipation. It can also mean that food just kind of sits in your gut, and when that happens, it can ferment. Bacteria can grow and respire, and that produces more gas, which means that your stomach expands. Another nifty little way in which food intolerances cause bloating is the body's response to the food itself. Sometimes it's not as complex or interesting as fermentation. Sometimes when you eat a particular food, your body's response is to produce gas. Helpful, right? One of the things that's really important to understand is food intolerances and food allergies are not the same thing. If you have a food allergy, the food that you're allergic to is being recognized as something that's dangerous, something that's attacking your body. And so your immune system kicks in and attacks it back. This can lead to things like hives, swollen lips and tongues, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and can sometimes lead to anaphylactic shock, which means that they need adrenaline in order to survive. God damn, if you have a food allergy you don't know about, that's dangerous. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, please pause this video. Please call your GP right now. Please get an emergency GP appointment and talk to them about the fact that you think you have a food allergy, because that could legitimately kill you. So please get it seen to right now, even if it means clicking off this video. Just do it. Be safe. A food intolerance, on the other hand, can cause by a variety of things, and many of the reasons food intolerances happen is actually unknown. For example, people who suffer with lactose intolerance. It's not that the immune system is attacking the lactose when they eat it, it's that they're lacking a certain enzyme, and this enzyme is called lactase. Basically, lactase is an enzyme which is produced by the smaller intestine, and people who have a lactose intolerance don't produce enough, and lactase is what breaks down lactose. So the lactose itself does not trigger an immune response in any way. It's just that when it gets to the stomach and the intestines, there's nothing there to break it down, and therefore it highly irritates the gut and causes symptoms like bloating, diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea, flatulence, and more. So invest some time into tracking your food and your symptoms, because you never know, it might lead to something which changes your life forever. Another way you can do this is to just remove a whole group of foods completely and see if anything changes over a couple of weeks, like remove dairy for 2 weeks, or remove gluten for 2 weeks, or remove meat for 2 weeks. It's not easy, it's hard to keep up with, but it is so worth it, especially considering some intolerances can vary throughout your life. Like, I know somebody who developed, no, I don't know somebody, that's a line in a show. They say I'm really unlucky. I developed a soy allergy at 35. Who develops a soy allergy at 35? What is that from? I developed a soy allergy at 35. Who develops a soy allergy at 35? We're gonna figure this out. The person who says it is talking about how unlucky they are. I know that much. Something bad's happened and they're like, no, I don't. Ah, it's Daryl from The Office.
It's a soy allergy at 35.
Yeah, I don't know that person, but that is a fact. The fact is you can develop allergies later in life. You don't have to be Daryl from The Office, and it doesn't have to be soy, but intolerances can change. So it could be a good idea to keep a food diary and a symptom diary 2 weeks once every year, just to see what's triggering you more. Why not try these top tips to avoid bloating flare-ups? I hope you now understand more about the most common reasons for bloating, and that you get to experience some relief from your symptoms. Thank you so much for tuning into this video with me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to jump on down to that subscribe button and also drop a comment in the comment section below. If there's any videos that you want to see coming your way, just drop them in the comment section below and I'll see what I can do to make them for you. If you want to follow me on Instagram, please do. It's Scribbles by Alicia and I will link my handle for you right there. This was so much fun as always, and I'll see you next week. Bye!